Paint this beautiful patch of flowers with me step by step. Paint your background with a deep emerald green. You can use any shape, but I chose a square. Now add your first layer of flowers in a very deep blue. Paint them together in bunches and leave some empty spaces around because we're going to add several more layers of flowers. Now we're done with the base color for the first layer, which means it's time to paint some details. The flower I'm painting here is called a forget-me-not, which has 4 main layers. There's the outer petals, an inner white petal, this yellow stuff, and a dark circle in the middle. Sorry to all the flower experts out there, but I don't know what all of these things are called. For this furthest back layer of flowers, we're not going to add all of the details, and we're only going to add centers to about half of the flowers. Now we can start our next layer with a lighter blue. Keep painting them in the clusters you created with the base layer. Paint some of the flowers outside of the box for a little extra whimsy. That should have given enough time for the details on the first layer of flowers to dry, and now we can add in the dark centers. Now we can add the centers to the second layer of flowers. Let's zoom in so you can see what I'm doing here. It's hard to see, but I'm trying to draw the tiny little petals. It's a little tricky with a regular brush tip at this size, but it's not that important to get every single detail right here. For the inner yellow part, it's more or less just a circle. As we get to the top layers, we'll use more saturated colors for the center, but for these first 2 layers, I'm using a pale green and a very pale yellow. For the inner circles, you can reuse some of the dark greens from the background to make the color palette feel more cohesive. Before we add our next layer of flowers, we want to take a bluish green and add in some stems to the background. We'll repeat the same basic steps for the third layer of flowers, painting them in clusters where we've already started to form the bunches. And this time we'll start to use the white and yellow for the centers of the flowers. This is the last layer of flowers, and we're going to use a very pale blue. Don't be afraid to overlap the flowers on top of previous ones that you've painted, because that's what's going to give it a little bit more realism and make the layers feel very organic. Before we add the centers, let's add a very bright highlight on a few of the flowers. Now all we have left to do is add the centers to our last layer of flowers, and then we are done. If you try this out yourself, I would love if you could post yours in the comments. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please consider liking and adding to favorites and following and all of that sort of stuff. Bye!